from the NCPD Council on Mental Illness, conversations on faith and mental illness. Planning an annual Mass celebrating the lives of people with mental illness, with Deacon Tom Lambert, co-chair, NCPD Council on Mental Illness, and Bob Quinlan, project manager at NCPD. All right. Well, hi, Tom.
Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Doing well.
Good.
So this week we are going to be talking about liturgical celebrations for people with mental illness, and there's a couple of different variety of those. But the one we're going to be talking about today is annual liturgical celebrations, and they're called different things in the different dioceses that have them. But I know you do one in your diocese, and what do you call yours?
We call it the annual celebration, or annual Mass, I should say, celebrating the lives of people with mental illness, their family, their friends, and the professionals that are involved, basically, in their lives. So it's an annual celebration, and we specifically mention that it is for people with mental illness, for their family members, and like I said, friends and professionals. So we try to extend the invitation to all those various constituents, if you will, of the Mass.
Now, you said that you've been doing it for something up to 20 years or so.
Over 20, yeah.
And now, what is the purpose really that you do it for?
The purpose is it's a dual purpose, actually. One is to invite people to come so that they feel included and welcomed by the church. And then the second purpose is to let everybody know that we, as church, are reaching out to people with mental illness and their families. Mm-hmm. So I often say, no matter how many people we get at the Mass, there's even greater amount of people that we're reaching because we're advertising in church bulletins, we're advertising in the diocesan newspaper, and in Chicago they actually have a homeless publication called Streetwise, and we've taken out ads in Streetwise too. So we try to get the word out in as many creative ways as we can. Catholic radio, for example, there's another way of getting the word out. And I just think it's so important, and I've had people come back to me and say, I can't attend your Mass this year, but I just want you to know I'm so happy that you're doing it. So when they read about it, even if they can't come to the Mass, that it's a good thing. It gets the word out. So again, that we've got the people who hear about it, and we've got the people who actually come and experience it. And people who come and experience it, whether they have a family member or they themselves have the mental illness, or again, if they work in the field, they're always touched by what happens at that Mass.
Great. Now, I've got a bunch of questions, but now does the bishop or whomever, like who comes from the higher up, if you would, say that,
Well, each year we invite a celebrant for the Mass, and of course, if any of the other priests want to join it, that's fine. But we specifically ask someone each year to be the celebrant, and that person over the years has been the cardinal. It's been auxiliary bishops, or it's been pastors of churches, or priests who have a connection to mental illness in some way. Maybe they have a family member, or, of course, every priest deals with people who has mental illnesses in their parishes. So we try to get a variety of speakers. And, of course, we're part of the Office of Persons with Disabilities, so that's our connection to the diocese. The Mass itself is sponsored by the Office of Persons with Disabilities, and it's sponsored by Faith and Fellowship, which is our mental illness outreach program, part of our mental illness ministries.
Okay. Yeah. How has the attendance been over the years?
Well, it's been good. I say it like averages maybe 150 and 200, which you think, well, on a city the size of Chicago you would get more, but again, we're dealing with stigma. We're dealing with people who maybe don't want to be identified with mental illness. So the what we have done over the years is we have sent buses to nursing homes or places where people with mental illness live, our states. So we've tried a variety of ways to reach out to people. And I would say over the years, the population changes. You
Yeah.
know, that there might be a steady core of people who come, but we get new people each year. So, like this past year, we just had it this past October, and there were a lot of new faces there.
Hmm.
So that's our goal, is just to reach out to people, and whether we have 25 or 1,000, we're just happy to do it. And again, send that message that we as church want people to know that the faith community wants to walk with them.
Yeah, I would imagine. I was thinking that same thing. Just the fact that you're sending buses around, or even doing it, and people hear about it, they're going to realize, okay, well, here's at least one mark that the church is actually reaching out to us and cares about us,
Right.
and that, then there's that trigger of, oh, well, maybe I can reach out to the church when I need help and assistance as well, for those that might not be too much aware of what the church is offering. And always that stigma question of,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't really want to let people know, or something like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And I think what happens at the Mass is, we construct the day such that we have the Mass,
Mhm.
and people who, in our committee, who put the liturgy together, ensure that people who have mental illnesses and are connected to mental illness have a direct involvement in the Mass. So the readers, for example, are people who have mental illness, or a direct involvement of some sort, family member. The prayers of petition, are all read. In each prayer is read by someone who has a connection.
Now, are there? I know in this diocese, which NCPD is located, there is at least one priest I know of who has publicly spoken, about his struggles with severe depression in the past and stuff like that. And I wonder, do you ever run into situations where the priest can kind of say, hey, I struggle with something similar myself? Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've had that, and the response, of course, is wonderful.
Yeah.
Afterwards, people will say, gee, even Father deals with the issue.
Right.
It is so encouraging for people who have a mental illness to hear that other people are dealing with some of those same issues and are willing to talk about it. That's the exciting thing, is that they're willing to talk about it. The other thing I wanted to mention about the Mass is that in the offertory procession, the altar is bare at that point, and so we have a number of people bringing up, like, the candles, the altar cloth, the book, and of course the gifts, the bread and the wine. So the procession is very, very specific to, again, people who have mental illnesses or a connection to mental illnesses, bringing up gifts to present to the altar and address the altar, so to speak. So it's a very, I think, important part of the liturgy, and a very significant part of the liturgy. The other part of the day is that afterwards is a reception. So after the Mass, we all go over to the church hall and enjoy a light refreshment. We've had pizza. Over the years, we try to do some healthy things too, some fruit and water and
allergy
soda.
aware and all that.
Exactly. But what we don't do afterwards is speeches. Now, this is just the way we do it, and anybody can do it, of course, the way they want. But for us, when we started it, we wanted it to be a very welcoming and interactive day or afternoon. So we don't go back to the hall and listen to speeches. We go back to the hall, we eat, and we sit at tables and move around and talk to different people, and encourage everybody to get to know one another. Mm-hmm. So I think, for me anyway, that was an important part of our planning for this, is that it's a day to be, celebrating at Mass and celebrating with one another through our talk and sharing food.
Okay. Do you? I mean, that sounds nice. Do you? How do you ride that balance then between having information available for them if they want it versus, okay, here's everyone kind of selling their wares and pushing their
Right.
is there tables with information, or how do you handle that?
No, we that was the other thing is because people you say, well, can we hand out this and can we hand out that? It's like, well, how do you say what you can and can't hand out? So we don't hand anything out.
Okay. Right.
But what we do, we have a committee there.
Yeah.
And we identify ourselves as part of the committee, and so people will ask, questions, and of course we have information for them where they can, get counseling if they want from spiritual counseling.
Okay.
So because again, we're coming from the faith community aspect. We're not
Right.
people who are, directing them to medical help.
Right. Right. There's others that do that. Right.
Right. Exactly, and we can. If they ask me or they ask any of the committee members, we have a person there from Catholic Charities. So any questions come up from somebody, I can say, hey, go ask Tim. He can help you, or
Right.
Any number of people.
Great. Now, where do you hold it?
Well, we have held it over the years at 2 different churches, and it was actually the same pastor because he moved from one church to another. But he was the originally when we started the Mass, he was more than happy to have it at his parish, which wasn't, to be honest with you, that wasn't the case in every parish.
Yeah.
Again, the stigma factor. I don't think a lot of pastors understood, all the stigma that results around mental illness, which is forming a lot of the misconceptions about
Right.
mental illness.
Right.
So we found a pastor who was very welcoming, and so we were like 10 years at his one parish, and then he moved to a parish which actually was we thought, well, if he's moving, we might want to move too, because he was moving to an area that has a high concentration of people with mental illness that are essentially being warehoused by the state in this one part of the city.
All right.
And I live up that way, so it's a nice. The church is a nice location, and it's easy to get to on buses. So that's part of the consideration, is that you're going to have an annual Mass, and if you're in a big diocese, where do you have it?
All right.
So we chose to have it in the city and at a place, both places actually, but this one even more so, that is connected to public transportation.
Right.
So
I imagine that's key.
trains and the buses, it's easy enough for people to get there.
Right. Awesome. So I know we're going to have some handouts or downloads next to this video about some promotional flyers that you've had over the years, some bulletin announcements to use. And do you just want to say anything about if you were looking to start up one of these in your own diocese, things to do, not do, anything along those lines, how to start it up?
Well, I think the way to start it up is you have an interested group of people who want to put it together. You find a church that would be willing to host it, and then you break into your committees. There's a committee for the liturgical preparation, a committee for the reception, and a committee for the publicity, which would be really those are the 3 areas that I could think of you would really want to concentrate on. And in terms of the publicity, we do a flyer every year, and as you said, we have the bulletin announcements. And what we do is we have a volunteer who sends out the flyer to every parish and asks them to put the bulletin announcement into their bulletin. And of course, the way life is, some make it, some don't.
Right.
So to help ensure that process, we follow up with phone calls.
Okay.
And so we try to get to every parish by phone and say, did you receive our email? And if you didn't, we'll send you another email.
Yeah.
And
Now, how many parishes are you talking about in, the small diocese of
300.
Chicago? 300. So
And
how
Chicago,
many people, just roughly then, how many people are making those phone calls?
Just a couple,
Yeah?
2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah. We have one person who we have an email list of all the parishes. So we have one person who sends out the emails, and then we have another person who calls, and then the other committee members. We try to get it as many ways out to the public, I should say, as many ways as possible. So we also again advertise in the diocesan newspaper. We advertise in the public newspapers. So any Catholic radio is another possibility. So
Facebook? Do you do the Facebook thing or anything like that? Do you do the Facebook?
We're not on Facebook.
Okay.
That'll be next.
There you go.
After that, we'll be tweeting it out.
And whatever else is coming along.
And whatever else works.
And just an idea, maybe some parishes, if they have a little extra space in their ad space on the back of the bulletin, maybe they'd be willing to throw it in there for free if it's not being used. That's another aspect.
Now, I would like to just to address that question is we are a small group, and I just want to emphasize that you don't need a huge group to put this on.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have a huge group to put this, but you can do it with a small group as well. And I think that's important to understand, is you just go out and you just, as Nike would say, do it.
Right. And maybe the first year or so, it's better just to get it going and instead of trying to pull in too many people.
Right.
Because then you run into obstacles, just enough to make it happen.
Well, and as I have said, I think before, don't become disheartened if you don't get, thousands of people knocking down the door.
Right.
If we reach, a few people, that's wonderful. We've reached, several hundred over, any one Mass, and I suppose over the 20 years, thousands. While the individual Mass may not have a great number of people, over time you reach a lot of people. And again, I can't emphasize enough the fact that you're advertising it sends a message out that you are concerned.
Yeah, and they're aware that there's someone to talk to in the church. That's
Absolutely,
really important.
Absolutely, that the church cares, and that's a message a lot of people don't hear enough of.
Yeah,
and so we need to just keep that message out.
Right. Well, it's a great component of an overall ministry, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, anything else come to mind?
Well, just the only thing I would say is we have also done regional masses. We have 5 vicariates in Chicago, and so on occasion we've done it on a vicariate basis. And there are parishes who will say, "Gee, I'd like to do it at the 11 o'clock Mass," so that someone will do a specific Mass dedicated to the promotion of the idea we want to welcome people with mental illness and have a reception afterwards.
Nice.
So there's various ways of doing this, but I think the annual Mass is one of the best in that it sends a message across the Archdiocese.
Great. Okay. Well, maybe we'll look more specifically at some of those other ones too in future videos. And I know some others from around the country are doing those, and maybe we'll be able to get them in and talk to them as well. That'd be a great resource.
This is the model we use in Chicago, but other models out there, and we hope to get that to the people watching our video.
That'd be great. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Tom.
Okay, bye.
Resources that supplement this video are available at ncpd.org/mivideo. From the NCPD Council on Mental Illness, Conversations on Faith and Mental Illness.